recognizing that I feel like all the world does at this point is just throw pills at people and just try and find quick fixes rather than sitting down and having the real conversations to keep people off of medications. You said communication. Most problems really do stem from the communication if we go back to the root. Beyond the surface, communication. You don't feel like you're being heard, you don't feel like you're loved, you don't feel like you're being listened to, whatever, and then based off of people's like natural coping mechanisms, whether they're improper or proper or this or that, you start to drift, and then you have like external influences, social media, friends, people telling you, oh, you should do this or that. Sure, you try this. It may not be the right thing to do, and then you snowball into something else. When did you ever go to a think straight appointment to make sure you were thinking right or your thoughts were in order? Anybody? Was that ever on schedule? Like, hey, like I'm just gonna schedule you for an appointment just to make sure like you feel good and your thought process is where it needs to be at. That shit was not on the menu.
Welcome to the ICU podcast, a space for self-reflection, personal development, and self-awareness. I have a beautiful brown man with me. He is a therapist. He is a friend of a friend that I'm super excited to talk about today. Dr. Tyrone, how are you?
What's going on, everybody? How are you?
I am blessed. I'm really honored to have you on here.
Thank you for having me.
This is one of our first formal and informal conversations, which means it's going to be as organic and authentic as it gets.
100%.
So I want to start with like, how did you get into the field and the industry that you're in?
Okay, out the gates with the questions. The real, I guess, candid, like honest answer is, I think like throughout college, you know, when you're kind of trying to figure out like what you want to do in a sense too. I had stopped playing sports at the time, and I kind of was trying to figure out like what career way I wanted to go. As a Caribbean American, you know, I come from a household where if you're not like a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer or something, that your parents like kind of like disown you in a sense too. So I was trying to figure out.
What type of Caribbean?
So I'm half Haitian, half Jamaican. So
you're
even split
wicked.
down, You know, I think of like, you know, when they say two negatives like make a positive. Like depending on what's not.
You're dangerous.
Both amazing cultures, of course, but culturally, I think what it was is just trying to figure out something that I was still able to be authentic within myself. But I think like still meet the standards of growing up in a Caribbean household in a sense too. And I just taking some time to really reflect on things that I felt that I personally was good at, something that was not taught. So like you can learn to play an instrument, you can learn to play a sport. You know, there were a lot of different things, you know, growing up that I was good at, but one thing that I always felt was that I had a good gift of communication, like across different races, people. You know, there were a lot of things that probably could have turned out very differently for me, but just being able to communicate and talk about them with whomever and not being afraid to, I noticed I had like a natural affinity for. So it made me just kind of do some research and figure out like what careers were out there, and that's what really pushed me more towards therapy, because I always had an interest in psychology and like how people were. But that's how I kind of really honed in on it. Like that's like the actual like inception of how I'm where I'm at today. So.
And I'm sorry, I didn't allow you to introduce your titles. Like, how do you introduce yourself as?
Yeah. So again, my name is Dr. Tyrone Grandison. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I would put myself as a moniker. I say psychotherapist overall. So I handle many things under the mental health umbrella. So I work a lot with at-risk youth. Is just some of the work that I'm personally passionate about. Mostly like preteens to teenagers, because I think that's a very big influential stage of life. I specialize in working a lot with ADHD, anxiety, and depression are three areas that I specialize in, alongside doing some things with anger management are big areas. And then I have a niche demographic that I work with within sports, arts, and entertainment. So just, throughout my lifetime, whether it's playing sports or doing various things in the music industry with some friends and things of that sort, it helped create like a niche area for me to really help athletes and artists therapeutically, in a sense, be able to find different ways to express themselves. So, in a therapy session, I know it has like this taboo or this idea, but something that I've discovered in my work, which informs my expertise in this area, is really helping individuals overcome certain struggles or things that they're dealing with. And that essentially starts to improve their performance across the board, whether that's in sports, whether that's what you put into the music when you write, whether that's in the art that you paint. Like, there's some beautiful art pieces on the wall in here as well. I'm not sure if they could see, but I could see them. But, depending on what you kind of put out there, essentially. So what I do is I go in and I have these therapeutic conversations in which I'm able to help mold the mind and emotion of that individual, and they're able to then express in that sense in their particular art, sport, fashion, whatever it might be in a sense too.
And how long have you been in the field?
Overall, I would definitely say like 12 or 13 years at this point, if I think about from the beginning to where I'm at now. I opened my private practice, which is located here in Miami, Florida, in 2019. So it's called the New Balance Group Incorporated. And the idea about that is just overall, like, life is about balance, right? So if you go back to like kind of a scientific aspect of this, as I started this track of my life, like more on a pre-med aspect of it, going for psychiatry, and then recognizing that I feel like all the world does at this point is just throw pills at people and just try and find quick fixes rather than sitting down and having the real conversations to keep people off of medications and whatnot. So I do a lot of med management and trying to reduce individuals from needing certain medications for particular diagnoses. Of course, there's people who like do need it depending on what's going on, but I try my best to keep people off or figure out how to, handle more of that necessarily. But again, the idea in that company is just that, like, life is about homeostasis, right, and balance. So it's always about, we're all made of a mixture of good and bad, right? We're born into a world of sin. There's how we can kind of manage that and maneuver through that. So, when I was thinking of the best way to help individuals, and I'm like, I'm going to honor every aspect of the individual, good or bad. So that's where the idea of balance kind of came in, and just helping individuals, create, not only restore balance, but create a new balance within their own lives. So
that's really refreshing to hear somebody in your field that is looking to get to the root cause and not just smooth out the symptoms.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's a huge thing in my own journey. Like, I started therapy in 2017, not voluntarily. It was the military that suggested it to me and was essentially like, if you want to move up and you want to progress in your career.
They suggested that?
Yes.
I'm extremely shocked because there are individuals that I've helped that are in, whether it's military, police force, fire, pilots, things of that sort. And in a lot of these professions, it's very frowned upon from what I've heard, at least.
I was wilding, though.
It is frowned upon for them to seek help because sometimes it could list you as not stable enough in a sense to perform your job duties.
I was already listed as not stable.
Oh, okay. So that makes sense. they were past that, and they were like, yo, you need help, actually.
Yeah, they were like, you need to do this in order to become back stable, which it was needed. Like, I wouldn't have chosen it on my own, but I really feel like God really allowed certain people to come into my, because I was a hardhead at the time. I didn't want to listen, uniform or not. Like, I've always been, in a sense, like, rebellious. Like, you tell me something, I'm probably gonna try the opposite just to like prove a point real quick. So it was one of those things where I was like, okay, I really think that the people saying this to me, like, they mean well. Not only are they telling me that this is essential for my career, but like this is essential for my well-being. So I started off in that sense, and my first encounter with my first therapist, though, it felt like a lot of pills. It felt like a Band-Aid. Like, I was like, I don't feel better. You're telling me that I should, but I actually don't. And then nobody introduced me to really looking, like, going beyond the surface and really like digging down to the root issue of like, where did this start? And like, how do you heal that wound instead of just like putting a Band-Aid over it and then ripping it off, So that's really refreshing to hear that you are coming from a place of like, you want to help people get to the root and like grow from a healthy place.
Exactly. I love the name, like, so I see you going beyond the surface. Thanks. When you really think about it too, and it's just that, even in my line of work in the world and what I see is just that most individuals really just take things at face value. And like, even like a small tidbit, like if you, in whatever situation that anybody's going through, if you actually just take a moment not to just solely focus on exactly what that person did or what was happening in the moment, take a step back and like actually assess everything that's around, that's where you can start to emotionally regulate yourself much better in a sense too. But obviously it takes time to train your mind to be able to do that in a sense, to just say, okay, like somebody said something offensive or something came at me, but like, okay, like why did they say that? Most people react directly to what that stimulus is right away versus saying like, okay, like for you to, okay, you're wilding, you just said something crazy, but like, where did that even come from? So if you go to that second, third, or fourth thing, usually you may be able to mitigate what your reaction or feeling might be in the moment, but it's just like not the typical thing to do, essentially,
So this gift of communication, because you articulate yourself really, really well. Oh, do you feel like it was something that you were born with, or something like how did you come to the self-awareness that was part of your gift?
Yeah, I'm dead. In my head, the first answer, I'm like, God, I wonder if it was all them like freaking Caribbean ass whoopings as a kid to be on point. I'm like,
that like sense of perfection that you feel. Yeah, I feel that.
I would say, I think if I relate it like culturally for myself, I think really because I'm half Haitian, half Jamaican, right? Like these are two cultures that in the Caribbean, for those who are not as informed, like every island is just so proud that they're the best. And it's just like, everybody, I'm sure across all cultures, like, the Trinities feel this way, Jamaicans feel this way. Everybody got their own thing in a sense too. So I think being a first generation American, where like I kind of was stuck in the middle. So like I got like mad Haitians and people speaking French and Creole on one side. I got all these people speaking Patois and pure Jamaicans and Badman on one side. And it's like you're participating in both because I am both. And then everybody fading me like, man, shut the fuck up. And I'm like, yo. You know, so I was like, you know, I speak Patois, it's a problem. I'm speaking Creole, it's an issue. And I'm like, man, I'm just gonna be myself. Like, you know, so I think
I feel that's so deep, man. I feel that's so deep.
Figuring that out, and I don't know how or where I had sense to really do that, but to realize that I felt like I almost didn't even fit in my own culture, like really being here. But I really did embrace my culture on both sides very heavily. Like, you know, I can speak both. I'm around all these types of families. I've been both places, you know. So I've grew up with a lot of Hispanics in my family that were cousins as well too. So like not really knowing where I fit in early on gave me the ability to just like focus on like myself and the shit that I liked. So like I was always the kid, no matter where I grew up. Like I'm from New York originally. Like I'm around, and you know after my family had relocated to Long Island as I was growing up, and you know I've been around different boroughs and areas and whatnot. And you know like I'm skateboarding, doing this, doing that, like biking and shit like that. And people are like, the fuck, like what are you doing, like kind of thing too. And I'm like, yo, I'm just doing stuff I like. It's not attached to anything specific. It's just me trying to figure out what I like. You know. So.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I relate to that so much because. So my mom is a Chinese Jamaican.
Okay.
And my dad is Jamaican.
Yeah.
And it was always, my last name is Chung.
Okay.
So it was always like, you know, you go to doctor's appointments or...
That's actually hilarious because I could just picture somebody saying your name and saying Chung and they looking around the room and they're not looking for you.
Imagine me walking around with a uniform saying Chung and people are like, you're adopted.
What? Yeah, right.
Oh, you're married. And I'm like, no, it's mine.
Yeah.
And people are like, what? You know? So I definitely went through that like... And then on top of that, like how Jamaicans, it doesn't come in like a certain form, right?
Absolutely.
Like we're
there's
all
Jamaican Chinese, there's Black Chinese.
The only way for you to know if someone is Jamaican is when they speak patois, really, because everyone comes in different shades and things.
For sure.
So it's like I've always grown up with that same context of like. I'm in between all these. I'm too brown to be with the Asians. I wasn't fluent in my patois at the time or confident enough to speak patois. So then nobody considered me Jamaican. So it was just like a constant battle of like, where do I identify with?
So guess what? I'm going to speak clear and concise English because I'm here. I'm going to learn the language and speak it. But like even my parents, like they both, I can hear my mom's accent more than my dad's. My mom is a Haitian one, my dad's Jamaican, but like they both are very articulate. Like and again, I think that, you know, if you think about like acculturation versus like assimilation and essentially whether you're going to abandon your own culture completely and adopt the new one or try and bring in aspects of your own, it's like, I'm sure at their time coming to the United States, I'm trying to think about like what years they told me they got here. I'm gonna like guess.
You were born here?
I'm born here.
In New York?
Yeah.
Okay.
But everyone else, me and my sister are born here, but like the rest of my family, everyone else is not born in this country. But like thinking about it, I'm assuming that they also like growing up at that time, like probably, you know, 70s, 80s not growing up, they were older, but coming through that time frame, like in certain job and work opportunities, they had to probably present themselves a certain way. So I'm guessing that they washed out like, or adjusted part of their own culture in the way that they speak to
represent
to like kind of fit in well into the environment that they were in. They're both in healthcare.
I agree.
So, you know, whether you're working with patients, talking to other doctors and things of that sort, I'm sure they probably felt they had to be more articulate to fit in to what's happening. It's the only thing that actually makes sense. So.
I totally. And I also have a lot of Spanish influence in my life. Like I grew up in, my godparents are Puerto Rican.
Okay.
So I always grew up like around Spanish, but I always question like, why didn't anyone teach me Spanish? Like, why did I have to move to a whole country? That's also on my own accord. I'm just really extra, and I felt like that's the step that I needed to do.
That's what they said to do.
But it was to that. It was like we didn't want to teach you this thing that we didn't think was going to be useful or like be like a good representation because it was like speaking like you're in America, like just speak English. Yeah. So do you have a preference as to who you work with?
Ooh.
Not to make anybody.
That's a great question. If I really had to say it and I got pushed back into this work, it's teenagers. Like anything, maybe even like starting as early as 12, but like that 13, 14, like right before 8th grade, going into high school and like into that college age range. So I'll say maybe like 13 to like 18 or 19 are like my favorite age demographics to work with because they're so impressionable. Like, you know, if you're willing and open enough to take, like think about being a teenager, right? There was specific people that you definitely did not listen to. And there are people that like you genuinely just fuck with. Like, it's like, and you know what I'm talking about? You just genuinely whether it's somebody in your neighborhood, like a teacher.
Like
whatever.
they could say the exact same thing as your mom, but you hear it differently, from that person,
you know? So it's 100%. Like, and because of all the different like experiences that I've had and like in my life and things that I've been around, like, I think what makes me special at my job is I'm extremely relatable. Like, you know, I don't know everything or I haven't experienced everything, but there's a lot of things that I've dabbled in, like, you know, across like from tech to art to music to, you know, different sports, like, you know, so many different things that I've like gone very far in different areas, professionally and like recreationally, like for myself, that really make it easier for me to connect with youth when they're like interested in certain things. Like, you know, like I had a session recently where like this kid was like kind of closed off. He went for a walk and like I taught him how to skateboard. Like, you know, I really don't even skate like that anymore, but like I used to skate when I was younger and I could still skate.
Wow.
So it was like cool to like be able to do that in real time, further create a bond. And then like, cause what happened was the skateboard was part of like a Halloween costume, but like he couldn't skate. So like, I'm like giving him pointers of like what to do. And like, you know, he's a kid. So if his friends are roasting him, like, yo bro, you're a poser.
Yeah.
Like making fun of him and whatnot. But it's like, we then had an opportunity to work on that. And then I could talk about confidence and, you know, self and how you show up and be proud. And even if you were posing like, yo, bro, it's my costume, like, hold that. Like, you know, like, so it's cool. So that's my favorite age demographic to work with because when they're willing and they really want to listen, they're going to take it in and they are going to apply it, you know? So they're also the hardest when they are hard-headed and they don't want to listen.
Right.
You know, so those are headaches sometimes, but you know, either way, it's part of the job and it's what I do.
So what's the most common challenge that you come across with that demographic?
I think the biggest thing is we're in a very different day and age.
Yes, we are.
Now, which no one wants to hear, social media and the electronics and all that kind of stuff is really frying people's brains. Like there's some literature that
the
I'm
attention
working
spans,
on, like, you know, ADHD, all these things, mood disorders, depression. A lot of that is really stemming from what they're seeing on social media. Because again, like what? Like we could put this podcast out, gonna do numbers, people are gonna enjoy to watch it, and then sometimes they see somebody on the other side of that camera and you're like, wow, this person has this and that, and they're hearing that. And then like, you're in a room by yourself, mostly scrolling, trying to figure things out for yourself. And somehow like, some people are naturally encouraged by that and they know what to do with it. And other people, when they're unsure, especially at that age, you don't know what to do. So it makes you feel bad about yourself.
Yeah.
Shit, I'm not doing enough. Shit, I'm sad. Shit, I'm this. Shit, and then like, then you got an attitude with your mom. Now you're acting up. You have an attitude with this person. You're not doing well in school. Then you got the kids at school that are doing drugs or doing some weird shit. And then like you get roped into, and then it's just a snowball effect of that essentially. So I would say like that is the biggest challenge in a sense because, you know, I have to go in and really be able to see all these different variables in their life that really could be influencing the symptom that I got called for initially. So I'm getting a call, usually more by the parents every now and then the actual kid will call, but like from the parent.
I was gonna ask that, how do they get funneled to you?
Yeah, typically a lot of my business now, like, I'm online. You can find me on various websites and whatnot from like, you know, Psychology Today, ZenCare, and like all of the platforms that like insurance companies and people use. But you know, present day for my organization, and really a lot of it is word of mouth at this point. I don't really do too much outbounding. I have like maybe 5 or 6 therapists and coaches that are like on staff that I work with regularly, and I also partner with a lot of other practices as well because I'm able to recognize the differences, even though we do the same thing. Like I'm able to recognize the differences in our niche and how we apply it, and there's value in all of it. So you know how the world goes, everybody like competition, like, oh, you got this going, I don't want to talk to you. It's not like that. Like, you know, my brain has never worked that way, even in business.
Same.
It's really about how we can all understand what that midpoint is and making sure that we're giving as much value across the board versus being selfish about it, essentially. So
that's how you help the collective rise.
Exactly.
Like everybody using their collective skills to like attribute to the world. Yeah.
Exactly. And ironically, just as you said, like one of the therapists that are on staff with me present day, she's in the process of launching it's already launched, but like continuing to build her own private practice right now. And it's called The Collective as well.
So, that's fire.
Yeah, and she's also great too. So stay tuned for her. She'll be coming out soon, but it's like super cool to, you know, see that. And as you can see, like even in speech, how all these things are like interconnected, you know? So For me as a relational therapist, like my job is to be able to you or whomever in relation to these things around them. And like that's where I'm able to kind of like shift things and create change essentially.
So in terms of relationships, when you work with couples, what is the most common challenge that you see with couples regardless of age or ethnicity, whatever?
Everything. Everything, yo, it's crazy.
I would think it's communication. That's really...
Everything comes down to communication and not being able, like, in how you understand someone else's words, how you feel like their words are coming across to you and things of that sort. And, you know, of course, infidelity is a high one, of course, which I, again, still, like, just like you said, communication. Most problems really do stem from the communication if we go back to the root. Beyond the surface, communication. You don't feel like you're being heard. You don't feel like you're loved. You don't feel like you're being listened to, whatever. And then based off of people's, like, natural coping mechanisms, whether they're improper or proper or this or that, you start to drift. And then you have, like, external influences, social media, friends, people telling you, oh, you should do this or that. Oh, sure, let me try this. It may not be the right thing to do, and then you snowball into something else. So I think that's where I can like really see more of the issues happening. But yeah, you know, infidelity, finances are a big thing. Some people come in trying to improve communication, quality time spent, where couples are somebody feels neglected because maybe one partner does not have the adequate time to spend, in a sense, too. And I think more or less, like, we all go through some aspect of the struggles as well.
Yeah, just like in relationships in general. Something that I really want to bring up to you, and I'm trying to figure out how to collect the words, but I have noticed just across social media, and I feel like just in general, like this gender war that's going on. And I have this theory.
And when you say gender war, are we talking about like gender roles or like actual, like, you know, male, female, non-binary, like all these?
I think everyone's just arguing about like traditional roles versus like modern day, like how to implement these,
understood.
like all these things,
Understood.
right?
Yep,
or
yep.
like the masculine, feminine conversations, whatever the case may be. I want to know how you feel about, one, how people should enhance their emotional intelligence, like regardless of gender. But when it comes to those gender wars, do you think any of that has to do with emotional intelligence across the genders?
Good question.
Let me give you my theory.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Because I've noticed as a woman, as a Black woman, there's a lot of spaces for us to talk amongst each other about our emotions. I mean, we're emotional creatures, right? But there's these workshops, there's these retreats, I find more female therapists than I do male therapists, let alone
correct.
like brown or Black.
Ironically, that was a flip. So in the early ages of therapy, it was more male dominant. And then after, like, I'm talking like Freudian era and things of that sort, if we all remember like our old psychology classes. And so you have your modern and your postmodern. And as you go along through the scope, it flipped and it was no longer really male practice based and it was more female. And then it's kind of more or less been that present day.
Right.
You know, and more of a modern era for sure, I think. And the men are scattered throughout. But it's very interesting to see like that flip. But of course we need a balance of both.
Yeah, we really do. And I'm just like so confused on, I mean, I'm not involved in male spaces. I'm not a male. I'm not going to actively find them. So maybe that's why I don't see them. But I just know that there's all these spaces for women. Like, I really see a lot of women being called to, like, I want to know what's wrong. Like, they're really getting down to the abandonment issues. Like, they want to heal. Like, and the emotional intelligence amongst women, I feel like is just, I don't know, it's a bit higher than a lot of the men that I come across. And I'm like, do you guys have these spaces? Like, do more spaces need to be facilitated? Or like, what is going on that, like, it's this rift between us? Because I feel like women right now, or as a woman, I feel like, you know, I come across people that I want to have an intellectual conversation with. They're attractive. They may have, you know, the resources and things like that. But when things come out of their mouth, not only is their communication not there, but like the wisdom and the emotional intelligence is not there. But I'm like, I know that I've taken time in my own personal development journey to become this person. What's going on with you? There's more than one factor.
Fair question on your end. She's like, so what's happening over there? Because you're a guy. Like, what are we missing out on as ladies? Like, are y'all really doing this over there, kind of thing?
And when I encounter women, even if it's just like casually at a brunch or whatever, it's like, oh, you're doing the work too. It's more common for me to run into a woman that's also doing the work as opposed to a man. What do you think that's about?
There's less. I mean, just like you said, yes, there's less spaces, I think, for men to do that. It depends on the men on whether they are going to seek that or not. You know, I think historically, as you know, and even if you talk about gender roles, from the beginning of time to where we're at present day. And yes, I've heard all the arguments. Men aren't even men anymore. They can't mount TVs or hang shit or fix a car, change a tire. You're right. A lot of them can't.
Right.
These are facts, but it depends on the man or the individual of whether or not they want to not only improve their emotional intelligence, but like their personal skill set. Like that's like a drive, like kind of thing for you to be driven to do so. Like I can speak for myself and a few of my friends, like some of us are like just driven to like learn different shit that we just like to do, in a sense too. So it's like, oh, let me just learn how to do this. But like, that's just kind of like more of a personality trait. I think some people end up being a lot more avoidant. You grow, just as you say, like you grow up in a certain household or family space and you don't realize how influenced you are, whether you come from a single parent household or both parents. And even if you have both parents, like what values and what were they really talking about? Did they talk to you about your emotional intelligence? Did they give you space to feel your emotions? Were they shut down? Did they suppress them? And we all know what we've gone through as individuals. But again, mental health and like this type of conversation was not being had 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago.
No,
it was not.
It was not.
Everything was swept under the rug.
Right.
One thing I say on any podcast conversation that I have is like, go to the doctor, right? You've always gone to the doctor appointment to get your teeth checked, your eyes. You can go to the ENT, do your physical. When did you ever go to a think straight appointment to make sure you were thinking right or your thoughts were in order?
Ooh.
Anybody?
Anybody?
Was that ever on schedule? Like, hey, like I'm just gonna schedule you for an appointment just to make sure like you feel good and your thought process is where it needs to be at. That shit was not on the menu.
Right.
I never had it.
Never.
And I have 2 parents in the medical field, like it just was not there. So it's like, these are things that like and I think that's the rift. And then you bring in the natural aspect of the fact that yes, women are said to be more emotional beings and more aware of these things. So of course, these are things that you guys are gonna gravitate towards like working on more. But a big thing is though, like as much as like there are women who like also feel like they are doing the work, it's like, okay, like how are you really doing the work? Because sometimes people are like doing work, but they're not really digging in the right places or handling it accordingly. Or if you're talking about it amongst friends versus like a professional, for instance, like
Yes.
what you don't realize is that you can talk to your friends about your emotions and your problems, but your friends can also reinforce bad behavior,
Yes.
man or woman.
Yes.
So it's like, you may think like, oh, I'm going through this, let me talk to my homeboy or my homegirl about it. They're gonna co-sign whatever's going on. Oh, I get you, and they wanna make you feel better. But what you're not noticing is that you're like reinforcing bad behavior or a bad reaction or a bad habit. Whereas it's more about locating that like neutral party or way to have the conversation in a sense to where, they're gonna be able to give you both perspectives. So it's like, do you have the friend? I'm not saying you don't, but it's like, do you have the friend that is going to listen and listen to your perspective and make you feel heard and seen there, but then play devil's advocate in the same conversation? We have a mutual friend, Nebby. She's very much so like she will be neutral. She'll make sure you're heard on your end. But at the same time, like, you can talk to her about certain things and she's gonna tell you exactly what the fuck is wrong with you at the same time too.
Right.
Like, oh, let's not miss. And
Yeah.
most people aren't able to have that type of friendship where you can exchange that type of conversation and not take it personal.
I agree.
So then it goes back to exactly what we just started talking about in the beginning, where it's like people don't take the constructive feedback well, you can't hear this and that and blah, 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 and you go into, and that's where the communication starts to get bad, because even in relationships as partners, people forget like, yo, I'm in a relationship with this person, right? My partner wants to build me up. They shouldn't be trying to break me down. Like if I feel like the person's breaking me down and they don't understand me or they're doing this or they're doing that, like, yes, that feeling is valid because for some reason you are interpreting their words in a certain way. So whether it's your interpretation or how they're delivering it, something needs to be edited there. But if you go beyond the surface, right, you could think, and where your mind should really go to is like, wait, why would the person that I chose to date, marry, or be with be trying to hurt me or telling me something that's not good for me? So even if the way that they said it is not good, hold on, what the fuck are you actually trying to tell me right now? Because you got me fucked up right now. So you sound crazy. You know what I'm saying? So it's like having a skill set to really like be like, yo, you're wilding, don't play with me, but like tell me more. Kind of thing. And you gotta really go through that tell me more and like pull it out. But most people don't got the patience for that shit. So
I really appreciate what I realized about therapy is that I didn't have a friend at the time. It was I started way back when, but I realized that the people that I was around, it was a constant cycle of us just like reaffirming bad behavior. Like I'm gonna share my story, you're gonna share a relatable story, so now it just reaffirmed the story. It's just this constant cycle of that. And I was like, I cannot keep doing this. And something that I've really just appreciated not only about therapy, but my particular therapist, I told her out the gate, I said, I need you to tell me what I need to hear, not what I want to hear.
And most therapists are, and like, there's a lot of bad therapists, and that's the thing.
Yes.
So in the industry, like, there are horrible therapists. And
Yes.
it's like, I teach at a medical school as well. I teach at Nova Southeastern University, and I teach in their therapy program. My favorite course to teach is our practicum, which is basically like your field work when you go and do your clinicals and you see patients and clients in real time. The facility is awesome because like, it's like a two-way glass. So I have like 5 students behind a glass and then like a couple or family or individual come in for their session and we could see through the glass like what's happening and hear everything. So not only do you have your one therapist who's working like with you, you have like 5 other people in the field who can also help and give information to make sure that we're helping. So like, that's how they train at the facility. So it's awesome. But like for me, it's great because, and I choose to do that because like I have an opportunity to impact the field positively by helping to shape the minds and create like better therapists who are practicing for the right reasons and not just being like, yeah, you're right, man, it sucks, sorry.
Exactly.
Same time next week?
Right.
Like, and it's like,
For real, just
you
collecting.
see that? Yeah, like, yo, you gotta go. So you gotta know when like the vibe isn't there, the joining process doesn't go well. You can also outgrow your therapist.
Yes, you can.
And it's up to you, and that it's really more up to the therapist to know
It's a
that.
real relationship,
But
and you have to
can outgrow-
verbalize.
Yeah, and when you get to that point, they should, as a clinician and professional, should be like, yo, we have reached the max of where we're at. We either take a break or I'm going to transfer you to go do this, or you need to go do that. We'll check in X amount of time. So like, if your therapist isn't doing it and then you're just coming in for repeat appointments and just shooting the shit about whatever, like, you also have to come in and challenge that individual to give you what you need, as you said. But most people don't know that, So.
No, actually. And I really appreciate, shout out to Simone, that's my therapist, Simone Denege. And she has really taught me, because she's the longest non-familiar, not the longest, I won't say, she's one of the longest non-familial relationships that I have in my life right now. Like I've been with her for like 7 years.
Okay.
And it came to a point where I was in a session and I was like, Simone, can I meet you one day? Like, I don't know how tall you are. I don't know any, it's like you're building a relationship with someone that knows everything about you and you know nothing about them, but it's a space for me to show up and know that like this person is not going to dump anything on me. Like I am there and they are there for me.
Yep.
And they are there to help me not only to be a soundboard, but to give me those clinical or whatever observations that I cannot see for myself. And I feel like I'm a very self-aware person, but that's why I feel like people think that therapy is needed when you're going through something, when you're distraught, and it's like, no, like this is like a life maintenance tool.
Everything could be good, and I always tell people that too as well. Like, therapy is not only for when something is going bad or something is wrong. Go for your Think Straight appointment. Hey, everything is going fucking amazing.
Right.
I'm killing it here. I'm killing it there. This could do some work. This, that, and the fourth. I feel this. Like, what are your thoughts on what I just shared? And in your speech pattern, like as therapists, we are trained to hear certain verbiage, things that you hear, things that you say that we can hear, and we may ask a question that really could just, your mind is like, whoa, what? Where'd you get that from? And it's with that, we can give you something back that you can just take back to your already amazing life or things that are going well and reinforce that or work on it. And these type of things like really do help. Like I do a lot of work with business professionals and industrial organizational psychology, where I'll go in and do like trainings for different Fortune 500 companies or like hospitality groups in Florida and things of that sort, and really talk about certain things. And it's like, they're killing it. They're making tons of money. Everyone's doing well. But it's like, okay, how can we do better? How can we operate better as a team and as an individual? And how can I even take that to my own life? So those are also my favorite type of conversations, because it's like, all right, like everything is good. It's not like a high risk kind of situation, but I'm able to really know that I'm making a difference in that person's life, because they're going to take the information and then they're going to go apply it and like feel so much better about it.
Are you a therapist that has a therapist?
Yes.
So something that I run into when I always suggest therapy to people, they're like, I don't know how to find a therapist. I don't know what I'm looking for. They like a lot of people, they don't know what they want until you really put it in front of them.
Yeah.
So what recommendations or qualities or characteristics, I know it's based on the person and what they may need help with, but do you feel like someone should look for when they're trying to find a therapist?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very tough thing to do, and I really do feel for, people, because it's a very daunting process to find a good therapist for yourself. And again, as I said, like most of my business personally is like word of mouth in a sense, but even when I do my intakes and people find me online on like different websites, I take the time to make sure that individual is getting the proper placement. So it's less about like me getting that business, and like, oh, like, well, this person like needs help and I can charge. It's less about that. And I'm like, all right, like I don't want this person necessarily if I know that's not my expertise or somebody else that I know, and I'll refer and like, no, call this person instead, in a sense too. But like for the process, to answer your question, essentially is like, you go online, whether you're using insurance or not. You go online, there's different websites. I'm sure you can link these. So there's, I don't know if it's ZenCare. Just type in ZenCare on Google. I don't know if it's zencare.co or .com, but it's called ZenCare. Psychology Today is a very popular website as well.
I always say BetterHelp.
Yeah, there's a new organization that I just started speaking to recently called Asana, and they help people with like eating disorders and things of that sort, which is a big thing as well. But you go onto specific websites and you'll see some sort of directory. You can search in your area by zip code. It'll spit out a list of people that you can look at. Literally, it's almost like speed dating or Russian roulette, where you have to go through and start reading mad bios and seeing. So you got to think of this process. Something's going on. I need help. You got to go and do homework and look up mad bios and this and that. But it is what any general individual would have to do. You got to look up the bios and look at the picture if they have one and see if this is somebody you feel like you connect with in some shape, way, or form, and then schedule an appointment and hope they have one. Or schedule a consultation and try and talk to them. But, more or less after you get through that daunting process, the biggest thing is like, I would, you pick your top 3, 4, call them. Like, I know it sounds daunting, but the cool thing is you got to remember they work for you. And this is all the therapists as well. Like, don't think that people are just supposed to call you up and book an appointment and you just help them. Like, you need to be selling yourself of how you can actually help that individual. Like, I work for you at the end of the day. You come in, you tell me what I need to work on or fix, in a sense. But that's just from my scope or my lens, because there's different intervention strategies that we utilize as therapists. So like, if you are really in a place of self-help, you're trying to learn more for you, sometimes it is useful to like look at the different intervention strategies to know like what might apply better to me. So you have a higher probability of finding a person that like is going to be able to help you versus picking somebody that does something completely left of the way that your brain works.
When you say intervention, like CBT or...
Exactly, cognitive behavioral therapy,
okay.
There's like solution focus, there's narrative therapists, Bowen, there's MRI. So like I'm saying a bunch of terms that people probably have no idea about, but these are all textbook terms. Like in postmodern therapy, present day, like there is like 62 or 64 modalities, 60 something, in case anyone want to fact check me, but there's like 60 something, like more like newer strategies that individuals, like therapists use to create change. And each one is formulated to work on the mind of the individual in a certain way. So it's up to the therapist to pick the modality that resonates the best with them, that they feel like they can practice the best. Or you have your therapists who are like me, who can digest multiple strategies in a certain way and find their own creative way to use it. And I think this is what gives me a lot of success, is like term that we use in the books is like eclectic, in a sense, where you're able to like pull from different modalities. But like, I have a list in my head, and again, because I do teach at the medical school and I have to teach these modalities to students, like I know a lot about how to apply all these different strategies. So like what I do, and I make the process easier for somebody else or people on my team, is once you talk to me, like I can already see which one of these modalities probably fit well in your mind, your brain work, to help you create change faster, versus the therapist who is just going to say like, I do this.
Yeah.
And that's it. But there's nothing wrong with saying that, because they've identified their expertise. They do, and that's what they're going to work on, and that's it. And it's better to do that than to put somebody at risk for doing something that they don't know how to do, and then like it causes more of an issue. But the process is daunting. Ask a friend. If you have anybody who's ever gone to therapy or has done the process, they may be able to like at least refer you. And referrals are the best, because like if that person knows you, they kind of have a general idea of like who's going to understand your lifestyle and your vibe and things of that sort. For me, within sports, arts, and entertainment, it's a huge thing, because like some therapists try and do that work, but you can't, because you don't understand the lifestyle. Right. You're not on the ground for a lot of the things that are really happening to understand the nuances of how these people live their lives. So like some people want a therapist that doesn't understand that at all, so they can work on other things. Mm-hmm. And other individuals need a therapist who really understand the dynamics of that if they're trying to grow or scale their label or their business or their music or their art in different ways, or their sport, so it's... Yeah,
there's a lot of factors to it. I've been fortunate enough, me and my therapist, we clicked automatically. Like as soon as I found her, I got a thing for green eyes. She has green eyes.
She's like, got me.
I was like, yeah, this makes sense. But we've really grown together, and she's like, she wasn't even licensed in Florida. It was when I moved to Florida, she was like, I'm gonna get the license for you. Like she really wanted to service me. So like we really built up a beautiful relationship.
Yeah. COVID helped with that, because like COVID opened the doors for like people to get access to more therapists, because they had to like reduce the regulations around it to allow people access to more mental health conditions.
I felt so special. I was like, girl.
You know what I'm saying? So like they really did help with that, which is great. Present day, they definitely have like closed the window on that too. So like therapists need to be licensed in multiple states. Now, like for me, I'm in Florida, New York, Jersey, Connecticut, and and DC and Georgia are pending. It should already like be done. I just I'm like, I should probably, but those I've like applied for like some time ago as well too. So I try and spread out my like area as well, and then again I have team members that are also licensed in other states too. So like whether they're affiliated with the practice, I'm still able to make sure people have resources.
Yeah. So a big thing for me, I want to move away from like business stuff, is like self-awareness. Mm-hmm. And the whole reason why I built this is because I sometimes feel overwhelmed by self-awareness.
Yeah.
And I don't know when I first identified this for myself. It was just like one day I was just like, wow, like I'm just aware of all this shit all the time. And like when I hear people talking, I can identify, and I'm just like, how do you not have it? So I want to talk about what is one of the, when someone is building self-awareness, what do you feel like one of the first keys to building self-awareness is as a therapist?
Look in the mirror. I mean, sound obvious.
Simple. Yeah.
But really, look in the mirror. Who are you, truly? Just like you said, like people talk about self-awareness and self-awareness, but what are they doing? They're being hypercritical of everybody else and everything else around them and talking about that person's self-awareness. You know, so it's like really being self-aware and honest with yourself about not only your struggles, your ideations, your viewpoints, and who you are, and not lying to yourself. You know, like you can want to be somebody or want to be a certain way. Great, that's on the surface, right? But then are you living that every day? Are you actually doing it? Can you write down multiple tangible things that you are doing on a regular day basis that match the person that you say that you are or you feel? And it's not a shot to say that that's not really you. What I'm saying is that on a self-aware aspect, these are things that you see within yourself, but you may not be holding yourself accountable enough to doing those things on a regular basis. So do better, you know, like do a little bit more in those areas to really become that person. And I think that that helps build your self-awareness in a way that you're gonna start operating so much better internally and feeling better. And then wherever the struggles are that you have, those are the things that you really need to work on. And that's how you really kind of like start to build that self-awareness and understand more about yourself, what changes need to be made for you to become.
Yeah. I used to always, well, not used to, but sometimes an exercise that I work through with some of my clients through coaching is I ask them to describe to me who they are without their job title, without their ethnicity, without their age,
Fire.
without where they're from.
It's a great activity.
Right. Like
Excellent.
essentially stripping
You strip
everything
away.
external.
And then they're like,
And people be stuck, man. Like
super
super stuck.
It's such a good thing to do. And even like within work, like, you know, a big thing like within like sports, arts, and entertainment that I'll speak on briefly is that, and this is why, like, you know, a lot of athletes, I'll say athletes specifically, again, many come from single parent households, depending on your sport and things of that sort, you know, areas of poverty and like really had to play sports to get out of where they were at. So again, like you come from an environment where you didn't even learn about these skill sets to begin with, then you went super hard in one direction of your life to like make it out and be in a better place.
Right.
So you never had time to really focus on this stuff because it's a lot of work to get to that level, you know? I say all this in a sense too, because like you build an identity around the sport or the art or the music. You know, really, a lot of musicians and artists as well, like what? You're a different person. It's a different persona.
Yeah.
Some people take on a completely different persona. And it's like...
It's a whole different name.
I'm not
like,
Chad, I'm Shad. Like, you know, like, it
No,
just...
actually.
It's like, oh, like, you know, like, and it's a whole different persona. So, like, you
Actually.
said, who are these two people? And the problem is just that, like, when life happens, things change, your sales start going down, you get injured, and you're not playing no more. And that is no longer your identity. That is the craziest life transition because you're like, who the fuck am I? And what am I about to do?
No, I've been through it. Like I felt like that when I stripped. Well,
You know,
I
and
essentially
even
got
for
pushed.
military,
Exactly.
yeah, military as well. Like you grow up. I was having a conversation with somebody recently about that as well
Exactly.
too, and the individual had stated it was just like, you know, like a big part of their transition out was like they had to take a step back and really sit down and be like, yo, like who am I? Life after military. It's the same thing in like military families as well, and letting go of the brotherhood, the sisterhood, like how all of that really molded and shaped who you are. And a lot of people enlist super young. So like you're talking,
Your brain
whether
was
you're super
molded
young
in
and
there.
you're going into your early 30s, whatever, for however many, 10, 15, however many years you stay in. And then it's like, all right, now I'm a
What
civilian,
now?
you know, now
Yeah.
I'm a civilian, you know, and it's just like, whoa, like now what, you know? And it's a big transition, and that's where all the emotions and things that you never processed as a kid in life, the death you've seen, the trauma you faced in your respective area, like all comes rushing, because in real time, we're never really like dealing with it. You had to be in action mode and go. You never took the time to like just be and really feel what all that did to you. And then it like is paralyzing almost. And then
It is paralyzing. Like I went through a brutal process of like just trying to escape and trying to identify with new titles for a little while because I was just like, who am I without the what do you do question? I feel like is so daunting
it's
sometimes,
loaded,
you know,
yeah.
because it is hard times right now. Some people are just doing their best.
Yeah.
Like you know,
That is the job, doing my best. Like really, that is
they're
the job.
really doing their best. And when
Yeah.
you're in a transition where it's like, you don't know what you're doing. It's like, how do you answer that question? And people are not asking that to attack you, right? They're not asking to be like, oh, you a bum. Like, you know what I'm saying? But it felt like that at the time because I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, and I know you're looking for a job title. I know you're looking for a career thing, But I wonder why people just out the gate will ask people their name and then I'll ask like, who are they? But I think that they take,
who are you?
They
They probably
definitely
looking at you
take that.
crazy,
They
like,
look at
what?
me so crazy.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
learning
yeah.
how to reword that, but like,
that's
it's
funny,
interesting
though.
the responses that I get from people that genuinely get the question because I'm trying to move around this like,
That's
what do you
jokes.
do
Like,
thing?
who are you? Tyrone? Next question.
Now people
Like, you
get
know,
so
yeah.
aggravated with me.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like,
that's
oh
funny.
my gosh.
That's a joke.
Another question that I wanted to ask is, what's one piece of advice that you find yourself giving to most clients that you feel like resonates universally?
We in the questions. One piece of advice that I feel like I universally give. I think, okay, so obviously changes with the season because just different things are always happening in people's lives. I'm gonna go with the more recent one, which is something that I've actually been wanting to like do a recorded talk about, actually. So thank you for asking in a sense, right? So I know you had asked about the age demographic that I work with like kids, but like you can still apply this across the board necessarily, right? And we've all heard or know the feeling of feeling like you have to listen to your parents, right? In a sense too. When they say that, like essentially somehow attached to that is like, oh, basically they're telling you to do something and you need to do it. And they're like, yo, do what I said, like listen to what I said, blah, blah, blah. And they keep saying that. And I think as I look at the disconnect in families, not only through preteens, teenagers, and even like couples in relationships as well. And as you know, like a lot of the things that we experience present day stem back to childhood and things of that sort.
Oh, yeah.
But the real thing is, it's like they said to listen. They didn't say do as I said. Listen. The do as I said may have come after. It may have been attached to something different or whatever else have you. But all they did was tell you to listen. So if people actually, and that goes back to something that we've always heard, like don't listen to respond, you know, in a sense too. Most people listen to respond versus listening for understanding, you know? So I say that in a sense uniformly because I'm just like, hey, like they never told you to just do that per se. You know, they're talking to you so you can actually listen and take that in and formulate your own perception or idea or understanding of it and then continue the conversation. So, you know, I feel like I say that in this way so for people to kind of tune their ears a little bit differently because I think that we're all in a place of knowing that like action is expected, whether it's from our partner, in a parent-child relationship, or whatever it is. They're telling you something so you could do something different, which is true. The first piece was to listen.
Listen, right.
You know, so I guess like slow down. Take a moment to actually digest what is actually happening before you're gonna be so hasty to responding to it. Because that impulsive response or that first thing that you do, more or less, is not the best decision that you could have made.
Is active listening something that you learn in school?
I think we should have.
Did you
somehow.
learn that when you went?
I don't, I guess, right? I think in a sense, school is made to like enhance those skills. You know, I don't think they like always tell you that's what it was. I can't recall a time of really talking about like active listening very heavily, like to where it was like ingrained in my head until like we're talking like, you know, college psych classes and things of that sort. But like, you know, active listening skills are things that, you know, again, like preschool, like, you know, not preschool, but like, you know, 1 through 6, 6 through 8th grade and things of that sort. I think that how teachers interact with those students are about active listening skills. But like, as you know, like these days it's going to be worse, which goes back to what we were talking about earlier because of social media and technology. What people have to understand is that technology, and I was in tech for a long time. I worked in tech for like 12 years. I worked for Apple for
What? You in the
4 to
many
5
lives.
years. Yeah. It's like I worked for Apple for 4 years, and I worked for AT&T for 6 or 7 years.
What?
And like I've been in the tech space, I've done a lot, and technology is a tool, but it is very crippling because as you get older, you don't need to do our tangible skills to like actually do things anymore, right? So yeah, think about it. Like I could just say, hey Siri, everybody's phone will go off and I could ask a question or hey Google, hey Alexa, whatever, and it's just gonna spit out the information. You don't gotta do the same work to where you have to go to the library and go find the book to go look it up. You don't have to tangibly go do things to get information anymore.
Right.
So the problem is that
all right here.
developmentally, yeah, it's all there. It's too quick access. So the problem truly is that like everything is too accessible and instant.
An instant. Yeah.
That you have to do no work and go through processes to get what you want.
Right.
It's too much instant gratification. You want something from somebody, they're gonna give it to you. You want something from your girl, you want something from your man, I expect it right now. This is gonna happen, blah, 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 blah. And all of that, like not listening and taking time to digest and understand is not active listening.
The practice of
it's
patience.
active acting. Like
Yeah.
you just actively acting on shit. You're not listening.
The practice of patience is definitely
You know?
a lost art right now.
It is, and it's severely going to affect, I think, our future. You know, that's why you see like robots being formed and people losing jobs and all types of shit. Like everything's gonna be so automated. That's just what it is.
Man, that's crazy. Like, I was watching a video about like phone addiction.
Yeah,
And it was
it's there. That's just like drugs.
how it's just like a societal Like, it's like the most widely accepted addiction amongst us, because it's just like, yeah, everything is in our phone. I didn't realize that I was addicted to my phone until this person posed this thing that when you put your phone down and you feel like it vibrates, but it's not vibrating.
Or like you forget your phone and you like,
I was like,
or you're tapping yourself and it's like, bro, you good?
Your mind over
so
it.
These are all things. And like, or you like, you don't even got a message on your phone, you pick it up and like your finger automatically goes to your most used app to swipe. Ain't nobody hitting your line. What you talking about? You're like, you gotta put the phone down. You're looking around like it's what it is, and that it is a form of addiction, and it's very overlooked, and it's things that are hitting our biological functions that you subconsciously don't recognize. It's like there's a dopamine hit, like you're like, oh, like somebody hit me up, like I have to respond, I gotta go do something, and you're getting it instantly and constantly, and these things start to affect your drive and your productivity when you're not getting that constant stimulus, because realistically speaking, you can't always get that stimuli all the time.
It creates an expectation for everything.
Yeah.
That is crazy. I really appreciate this. Is there anything else you wanted to cover?
Nah, I mean, I definitely thank you for having me. Everybody who's watching, for sure. Yeah, of course. Nah, I'm definitely open to coming back and talking more if there's other topics. I think what would be cool, what I will say is definitely like if people have specific topics or things that, I know we were just broadly just talking right now, but if there are specific topics that people want to hear about, I'm more than happy to come back. I release content every now and then. I have a bunch of stuff that I have not even put out yet just because, for me, I'm really in the field doing as much work as I can on the ground and making sure the resources are tangibly there for people, and I've gotten very close to feeling like I have a great infrastructure built, the right team, the right individuals, the right facilities to make sure that as I take in clients and different patients who need assistance in any way, that I have the right place to place them. And even if it's not working with me directly, do urge you to reach out, because what that's going to do is allow us the space to like help figure out, to point you in the right direction of where those resources are for you to get. And at the end of the day, as we said, you don't always have to check in and talk to somebody when there's a problem. Everything can be going well, and you can come in to just talk about what you could maybe do, and it's okay to just be yourself. There's so many expectations that the world has. Economy is crazy right now.
Identity crisis.
And it's like everybody feels like they have to be somebody or something or this, that, and the fourth. And what you need to remember is that you are somebody. You just need to take that time within yourself to figure out what you believe in, what you like, and what your interests are, and just build on that. That is what is going to take you to truly becoming your highest version of self. And if you choose to go public with that image or on socials or this or that, it'll come. And that's gonna come more naturally than you trying to fit into a box that you think is the cool box to fit in, or like what everyone else is doing because it seems like a good idea. Stick to the things that you like, stick to your own identity. And if that's something that you're struggling with finding, there's people to talk to that can help you with that. And I'm one of them.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for your work that you're doing in the work. I'm proud of you. I know that we just got here, but
I appreciate it.
I learned a lot about you, and it really is important, the work that you're doing, that groundwork, like being in the field, regardless of, whatever. Social media will be social media. It's not going anywhere.
Exactly.
So I really appreciate you being on the ground and really helping people heal in the way that you're helping them heal. Can you tell them where to find you? Yeah,
for sure. So the website for the actual private practice is thenewbalancegroup.com. So that's actually spelled out correctly, THE, newbalancegroup.com. My Instagram personally is at @bettercallontyrone, all spelled correctly. All spelled correctly. You can reach out to me there. I will be soon releasing some content on that end. As I said, for me, there's stuff I filmed that's there. It's just that being on the ground and really being passionate about the actual work. I guess this is like, it may sound like a shot, but it's like there's a lot of people that like to release stuff on the internet. Like they actually are doing certain things because it sounds good, and they're not really doing it.
Yeah.
Like some of these Instagram therapists and ideas and things of that sort that people are saying are people who are really not actually properly credentialed to be giving that advice. And that goes back to like reinforcing bad behavior, because I think your algorithm is going to tell you what you want to hear based off of what you're clicking.
Of course, it's listening right now.
You need to look for the shit that you don't want to hear.
Right.
That's what is going to help you grow always. But yeah, Better Call Tyrone on Instagram, and thenewbalancegroup.com. You can put in a request for us to reach out. Somebody from admin, myself, or one of the team members will reach out and talk to you. And we'll figure out where to get you placed and how to be of assistance in any shape, way, or form.
You're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you kindly.